चले मनोरंजन की एक अनोखी दुनिया में, जहां फिल्म देखने का एक अलग ही नज़रिया होगा। नमस्कार दोस्तों, मैं हूं आज की आपकी होस्ट श्रद्धा शर्मा विथ माय को होस्ट।
नमस्कार, मैं हूं आज की आपकी होस्ट श्रेष्ठा गोगना। आज के दिन का पहला डिस्कशन है। आई वांट टू रिक्वेस्ट द फर्स्ट गेस्ट ऑफ टुडेज पैनल, समीर नागराजन सर, टू प्लीज कम ऑन द स्टेज. Sameer Nagarajan, sir, is an avid reader, writer, and reviewer of books. After studying in XLR Jamshedpur, he has lived 3 countries other than India and draws on his life experiences to reflect on different times and weave his stories around life in India and how it has changed over decades. His first book, The Parijat Tree and Other Stories, was published in February 2023, so please put your hands together for that, by Vishwakarma Publications.
Next guest we have Lata Gwalani ma'am. Lata Gwalani ma'am is an author for 3 highly acclaimed novels. Her writings are rich with mature themes of a deep human experience with gripping storylines. In addition to her novels, her writings have appeared in leading publications such as The Hindus and The Indian Express. Give a round of applause for her.
Next in the line, we have Niharika Puri, ma'am, who is an author and screenwriter. So please put your hands together. Niharika Puri, ma'am, began her writing career in 2015 as a part of Writer's Room at Eros. There, she moved on to working as a creative associate on a few sitcoms. In 2019, she joined the Nadiadwala Grandsons digital wing as a producer. A year later, she quit to pursue her freelance dream. Niharika, ma'am's current projects are writers include Code M Season 2, which is released on Geo Cinemas, and her upcoming show, Shaker Home, which is an Indian adaptation of Sherlock Holmes with BBC, is set to release. So please put your hands together.
The fourth guest we have Rahil Nadiadwala sir. I request him to please be on the stage. Sir has born in a family that eats, sleeps, breathes in cinema. A family that has been making films for over 60 years. He has been a part of an industry for 13 years and also has done, and even till now, he has not done a single film under the Nadiadwala banner. The first 6 years has saw him in a Dharma production, and after that, he has moved to Yash Raj Films. Give a round of applause for him.
The last but not the least, Sir Krishnan Iyer, please put your hands together for him. He is the co-founder and the CEO of Fineza Information Technologies. He holds a PhD in marketing form, and he is a fellow IIM Indore. Krishnan sir is a fitness enthusiast and an avid reader. His first book, The Morning Star, was published in 2021. Krishnan sir grew in Gwalior, Morena, Indore, Sehor, and Bhopal, different cities and different towns of Madhya Pradesh. Currently, he lives in Mumbai with his family. So please put your hands together and make some noise for the amazing panel present over here. I think इन सबको एक साथ हमने कभी देखा नहीं होगा. It's only because of YathaKatha साथ में. So I would like to hand over the mic to this amazing panel and continue the roundtable.
A very good morning to everybody here. And thank you for coming on a Sunday morning, right? Must have been difficult to wake up and come here, but we'll make it worth the while, right? So good morning to my panelists as well here, my friends, my fraternity out here. So we're here for a discussion, and the round table has been aptly named On the Same Page. So as we discuss, let's see if we are really on the same page. And if you're not, then let's see how amicably we can return to being on the same page. So shall we begin? Yeah. So as an author, I see today that the OTT is bursting with opportunity for adaptations. You know, we as writers, we see so many of our co-authors' books being adapted into web series and films. So that often makes me think, you know, so should I make some change in my writing style to make the possibility of adaptation even huge for myself? And is there a way that one can do that as an author? And do my co-authors here also feel likewise? I mean, do you want to write specifically for the possibility of adaptation? Or should we stick to what we are good at and not test waters unnecessarily? So I'd like to know your opinion, and I'll also keep coming in with my apprehensions about the whole thing. So anybody can take this up, please.
Yeah, that's a fair point actually. But see, there are two different skill sets. Being a storyteller as an author is quite different from, you're writing a screenplay for a series or a movie. Screenplay perhaps is the art of, making the simple more elaborate. Correct? So that's a different art altogether. I am not able to guess whether you can be an author for an adaptation. But if the work is good and it can be put through very solid screenplay, then a derivative of that can be created. I don't know if I did make myself clear, but if I have to think for myself, perhaps I may not be able to think it in this way, that while I'm writing something, how to make it acceptable for an adaptation.
Maybe our friends here from the film industry can throw some light.
I would say don't write keeping adaptations in mind, because आप कुछ भी कर लो, the studios will take control of your book if they want to adapt it, and they will do it on their own way. They generally don't involve authors in the script writing process.
Right.
I mean, not everybody is a Gillian Flynn who gets to write Gone Girl and then gets to write the script of Gone Girl. And even then, she had to adapt her own novel and she had to make changes.
Right.
So I think if authors start doing this thing where they have to write their bookkeeping adaptations in mind, they fall prey to monitoring the OTT and film industry trends.
True.
कि ये चल रहा है, so we'll write it this way. But the film industry is already doing that. That gatekeeping exists. So I think if we can keep that freshness in books, and when studios are aggressively looking for fresh stories now, then let publishing be that hope where we can get good ideas from and adapt nicely for a more visual medium.
Oh, that is such solace listening to that, that one can just concentrate on the writing aspect.
Yeah.
Rahil, would you have a different perspective to this?
No, I think I second Niharika on this. And, I would actually want to ask you a question, because you've got 3 books, and your last book, Road to Abana, is set to be adapted. Okay. And it's in the process of being adapted. So I wanted to ask you that when you wrote Road to Abana, did you write it as an author, or you wrote it with the perspective of it being adapted?
Yeah, I should have known that this will come back to me. Yes, it'll circle right back. Okay, first of all, a lot of it is under wraps still. So, but you're right. Not an iota of inkling did I have that this will be adapted. I was simply a writer, a storyteller, writing the story as it came to me. And yeah, now that you tell me, it's like an eye-opener. I never once wrote from the perspective of it being on big screen or anything like that. I get the idea.
Yeah. So what I personally feel as an aspiring writer, and someone who's writing his own content now, a rose is a rose is a rose, and a story is a story is a story. So I have personally learned a lot more about storytelling from authors than I have from screenwriters.
Wow.
So I would, plead to all the authors out there that, please stick to writing your stories, because there are a lot of people like me who are learning from you. So don't get into that idea of, I'm writing this with the hope that this will be adapted.
Wow, wonderful. That makes us feel so good, Samir, isn't it?
It's a big relief to hear.
Absolutely.
I was also thinking that, as a person who watches films and a person who reads books, my expectations from both media are very different.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't watch a movie where a scene goes on for more than 2 minutes, but you don't write from that frame. You don't write a book from that frame. So, left to myself, I would always concentrate on writing a book, because the expectations are totally different. So,
Right, yes.
so it's a big relief to hear people saying that.
Stick to writing. I think that's what we should do, Krishnan. As you rightly said, we stick to that.
I'm so sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I think the best thing authors can do when they want to make the books adaptation friendly is just make it pitch friendly for the industry, because the film industry famously doesn't read, unlike the publishing industry where everybody reads. So I'm sure even for your book Road to Abana, you had to go through the tedious process of writing a 1-page pitch for your book.
Absolutely.
Then a complete book synopsis on the whole story of the book. Then studios also like a chapter by chapter story synopsis, so that they don't have to read the book at all. They can just pretend they did.
True, true.
So when you do that as authors, you look more prepared, and studios
Yeah.
are like, they have everything. Let's consider this book.
But I must confess one thing, writing the pitch is very tough. I can write a novel, but writing that one page pitch is, I had to do a lot of thinking. So I get what you were saying then.
That's a
Yeah,
marketing
that's
thing.
true,
Yeah.
but about that I have to say something. See, when I was way deep in my corporate career, so because there are kids sitting out here, right? So I was heading the software business for IBM in the country. So there, if we had to ever pitch something, at the presentation, so our motto was, if you can't put it in one slide, that means you don't know what you're talking. Okay, so as a writer, if you can't give a crisp synopsis of what your book is, then perhaps you yourself don't know what it
What
contains.
it is about. Yeah, so true.
No, I found, we do synopsis for publishers as well. It's not, it's part of the publication process. And I found it very difficult because at least I think what happens with me, at least, and some other writers I know, is that you get emotionally attached to your creation. So it's like, how do I summarize this?
Yeah.
it's like.
That's right. You keep thinking, there's so much happening in my story. How do I put it all there? No, talking of pitches, I'm also thinking of the marketing aspect of the product, the book itself. We're talking of pitches, and I think as an author, my challenge has always started after my book has been published and it's now ready to see the light of day. How do I reach it to the reader? Because I am not a marketing champion. I am a writer. So what do I do? How do I learn the ropes, and how necessary is it for the author himself, herself to do the marketing? Are there specialists who can come in, fill in this slot for us? Or, how does it work? People tell me you've got to have a certain social media following. Should I write or should I go after followers? What do I do? Have you faced this challenge, my author friends here?
Yes, it does. But I think one has to develop a deeper understanding of what this thing is. When people say following, it's actually, they are not talking about how many people follow you, but what's your credibility out there. So, for example, if a Shashi Tharoor writes a book today, or for that matter, Sachin Tendulkar writes a book, then these people have proven their credibility to the society. But if I do that now, what's my credibility? Nothing. There's nothing to know about me, worth knowing, right? So, but if we see some other authors, people have been writing columns in, the big newspapers for years. Abachi Karkaria or, Swaminathan Ankleshwari, people such as that. So they have that credibility in the society about their subject. So if Bachi writes a book today, people will know it's going to be satire. If Swaminathan writes a book today, before the book comes out, people would know that it would be about practical aspects of economics. Correct? So that whole following and all these things relate to what kind of credibility you have created out there.
Yeah.
So So when that marketing is being spoken about, it's all about that how do people perceive you? Do people even know you? Are they going to, jump over each other to grab a piece of what you have written?
Yeah.
If that's not the case, then you've got to create it.
So
Somebody
are we
else can't
creating a
create.
brand of ourselves or of our product? What are we working on here?
So it's first about yourself, correct? So for example, if the name Sharad Joshi is taken, people will straight away get it that you're talking about, humor and satire. Right? If you say Premchand, people will straight away know that, pathos is going to come here. Correct? So it's the personal brand first.
Okay.
And
You were saying something.
I think that's why in the publishing industry, there is a slightly sad trend where they're trying to look at influencers, all the beauty and fashion influencers on Instagram, and get them to write books because they have millions of followers. Publishers don't have to worry about marketing the books. The influencers can just post it on their IG handles and say, "Aa gayi ye kitab khareed lo," and that's done. That's taken care of. Otherwise, alternatively, writers just have to put in their own money which is an X number of lakhs, that this is the money I have, this is what we spend on marketing, and publishers are happy. So then the chances of you getting published get higher. So I have a friend of mine actually who told me about the publishing bit, because the influencer bit, because he's a script writer and he's a published author. So he has one book with Penguin, one book with HarperCollins, and he still says it's an uphill battle to get his books marketed and out there.
True, you said it.
And also, see, some people, let's look at Chetan Bhagat, for example. Okay. When he came on the scene, nobody knew him. He had absolutely zilch credibility. But he used his alma maters to that effect. He just hyped up on IIT Delhi and IIM Ahmedabad and all that. And that's a fact, because these are, how to put it, aspirational for a lot of people. So if they find somebody having walked through those portals, they say, this is God who also writes. Okay, so you have to find those pedestals on which you can stand and market yourself.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Chetan Bhagat. I bought 5 Point Someone because Chetan Bhagat is IIT IIM, but I read his books because I like his writing. So it's just, I think the author is the product to a certain extent, but it's just it just opens the door. Beyond that, I think it's how you write. It's the quality of the writing, because some of his books I don't like. They're just bad, but I bought them anyway because I like most of his books. That's where it kind of works.
Yeah. As they say, there is a reader for every book, and there is a reader for every author. Likewise. Yeah, that's true. So now when we talk about reading and we talk about different types of like followers or people who pick up books or influencers, right? And there are readers for those kind of books. Are there really readers out there? Is reading as a habit dying? I mean, do youngsters here in this audience, do they pick up a book? Do they read? Do they read physical books? Do they read Kindle? I mean, is reading still around? Or has today's reader become a viewer? Because there's so much of content out there, so has the reader metamorphosed into a viewer? What is your take on this? I mean, what's your thinking on this?
It's a very interesting point you raised, because I was talking to a literary agent and he was telling me that the Chetan Bhagat Durjoy Datta audience, those readers who like the simple books, now they've moved on to OTT.
Yeah.
So now it's become a bit challenging for these two authors to maybe, or authors like them, like maybe a Ravinder Singh, to get their books out there. So now they're gradually moving more towards the script writing aspect of films. So Durjoy Datta was associated quite a bit with production with, I think, Bindas. So he used to write a lot of youth shows for them. Chetan Bhagat's also making his forays into TV. So that's what they're doing now. They're tackling a new medium.
So which means, again, I mean, reading as a habit is dying. Are we saying that?
I think the serious readers will never go away, but the readers who look at simplistic books maybe can get distracted by OTT.
Yeah.
But I don't think the reading industry is necessarily dying because of lack of readers are there. I think it's maybe the overheads, from what I've read and understood, of publishing, the cost of paper, ink, and other things. And because books still get sold more than Kindle copies, which I personally as a traditionalist find very heartwarming.
True.
So I think uska kharcha zyada hai, but simultaneously the publishing industry doesn't really pay their employees a whole lot. So I think somewhere the overheads can get cancelled out. The serious readers are always there. It's about the others who maybe aren't that into books who need to be drawn into our fold.
Right. Rahil, you said you've learned a lot from authors. Does it worry you कि readers kam ho rahe? I mean,
no, I'm not worried, because I know that every story has its reader, like you very rightly said. So I know that every author and every story will find its space. But what I'm really worried about, and sometimes that I feel bad about, that I see a lot happening over here, is the commercialization of art. So, there's a muhavra in Hindi, जिसका बंदर उसी से नाचे. So it's important as an artist, when you're testing different waters, yes, go out there, test different waters, but don't lose the artist in trying to test those waters. Okay, if you're an author, you're an author. These authors who are trying to become hybrid, एक book adapt हो गई, अब दूसरी हो रही है, let me now start writing. If you see these authors, I don't want to take any names, but I have personally seen that these authors whose books are adapted, suddenly their second, third, fourth book are being written from the perspective of it being adapted, and that's why the writing quality is dropping. So it's very important that the author doesn't lose the voice. That voice is the key. So, and this commercialization is what is destroying the voice, which in turn is destroying the stories. Because the same author whose stories I love to read, now I'm seeing that I'm having to change because his stories are not working for me anymore. And I'm seeing this with a lot of other readers, that they're switching authors. So I personally feel, I mean, I'm not talking about loyalty, ke, you know, if there's one author, hum uski 50 किताबें पढ़ लिए. But I'm saying that we all have our space.
Sure.
You know, if I like crime, then I'm reading 4-5 authors in crime, and suddenly I realize that, you know, this author's first 2 books were so amazing, and both of them got adapted, and now the 3rd and 4th book is down there, and it's not working. So the commercialization aspect, I don't know, Sameer, what do you have to say, Niharika? But I think the commercialization aspect is kind of hampering the art of storytelling.
Samir, would you like to say something, or I mean, you're happy sticking to writing?
I'm happy sticking to writing. You know, which I think Rahil's point is absolutely fair. The moment you start writing, thinking of an adaptation or thinking of a particular audience or thinking of, you know, what will people think of this,
Yeah.
I think it compromises the quality of the output. To that extent, you're kind of targeting a specific audience rather than writing, being creative for its own sake. That's not to say you don't need to care for your audience at all, but I think that's something you do when you're editing or when you're you know, refining the product, rather than saying that I'm going to think of something that appeals to this audience.
Because from what Rahil says, I also feel the danger of wanting to fit in. The author tries to fit in, because this was going to be the next point of discussion, so I might as well bring it here. We see a burst of the crime and spy universe on OTT. So is there no scope for romance, rom-coms and, you know, personal sagas and memoirs? So, I mean, why is it that we see so much of just crime and spy? Again, have people stopped writing, you know, romance? Have people stopped writing memoirs, or just relationship stories which are not getting adapted? Where's the gap?
I think it's more like you have flavor of the day, flavor of the month, flavor of the season. So the 90s saw a lot of love stories, which was made by one of the biggest filmmakers, Yash Chopra. And 90s it was just love stories. Then from 2000 we suddenly saw historical films. You know, after Lagan came, and then Devdas came, and Jodha Akbar, and recently also there's Bajirao Mastani and all of that. So I personally feel what happens is over here that, oh, that thing worked. That means that's what people want. So let's start doing that. It's more of a trend. So I think crime has now become a trend. People are wanting crime, and therefore everybody is asking for crime. So nothing else is getting a chance to come up. It's that commercial aspect. You know, अभी ये चल रहा है, ये बिक रहा है, तो यही बनाओ. I don't know. What do you think, Niharika?
See, I think that there are a few exceptions. Like, let's say we were discussing that TVF essentially has a monopoly on light-hearted content and storytelling on OTTs. You know, shows like Panchayat, Permanent Roommates, Aspirants, and so on. Then we have Sandhya Menon's book Mismatched that got adapted into the super hit Netflix show. Vikram Chandra's A Suitable Boy, again a Netflix show. A Married Woman by Manju Kapoor, again an Alt Balaji show, which is another show on, you know, human relationships. So what chal raha hai? The reason I think there's a push for thrillers, which I always maintain, is because thrillers are easier to pitch. They're just more engrossing. Not every writer is a natural narrator or a performer, and you are expected to perform your stories to studios. Stories are not getting greenlit in this industry because people are reading. They're getting greenlit because you just performed it well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, one of my mentors at Eros actually told us that you writers should attend acting classes so that you can be more uninhibited when you're pitching stories.
Wow, that's new.
Yeah.
That's new.
So easily thrillers are easy to pitch, and if you notice, it is easier to get hooked by a mediocre thriller than it is to get hooked by a mediocre romance or comedy.
Oh, you said it, yes.
Because if you see a mediocre one, it's not funny, you're out on the first episode, you're done.
Correct.
But when it's a thriller, it's very easy to insert these false hooks to make it look to the viewer that the story is going somewhere and it isn't. Because I've also written stories somewhere where producers have suggested to me that, oh, let's end this episode with your protagonist. He gets into a car, talks to this mysterious person and leaves. I said, that's not the story, that's not the scene. Who is this person? You're pitching me a new character that I haven't written. They're like, put it, intrigue badega. It'll work. So a lot of this happens. And have a hook at the end of every episode. The audience keeps coming back. Payoff doesn't matter. I was told to write a sequence where a female journalist is meeting a source in a cafe, and the producer said, we'll shoot it as if she's being followed. I'm like, is she being followed? I haven't written that. He says, no, but we'll make the audience think she's being followed, and we won't address it again. So that's just how it is.
See, but if we are trying to find a correlation between OTT viewership going up and book reading coming down, I don't think something like that exists. You know, there's no hypothesis like that.
You don't see a correlation.
No. See, I'll make a wider point. One is certain societies behave in a certain way. In our society, reading has never been a big thing. Nobody ever used to read. Okay, if I remember, my parents never read. I don't remember seeing my grandparents ever read. Okay, if you people have, then you may have a different experience. But overall, reading is not there in Indian society. You can see that on flights also. If you ever travel outside, you will see Indians on a flight. Hardly anyone will be with an open book. Europeans or North Americans on a flight, there will be many, with open books traveling. So that's point number one. Point number two, see, people like simple stuff that they can enjoy in a short span of time. So I distinctly recall that there used to be a Hindi magazine called Manohar Kahaniyan. Okay, there used to be some amazing stories in that.
Yes.
Also in fortnightlies like Reader's Digest, those things have died. So you don't get to read those shorter things which were which also used to carry a lot of good quality within them. Okay, and now you are therefore left with the bigger versions. For that, the readership has never been there, as a percentage of the population, I think. But that might be improving because of overall improvement in literacy, so on and so forth. Okay. The other point that I want to make is perhaps people miss where the readers are. Maybe still a lot of readers are in the vernacular, whereas writing is, dominated by English writers. Okay, so it is possible that you may have, very good writers in, Hindi or for that matter, any other language. But they are not there.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the recent one which got what is that, Red Samadhi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tomb of Sand. Yeah.
That's too much for a lot of people. But the smaller ones, the mass ones, where are they? That's the question.
So translations are now happening more than that's what I'm hearing. And I speak from personal experiences. Yesterday, the Telugu translation of Road to Abana has been announced. So
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Yeah. So thank you very much. So I think there is, and I completely agree with you, there is still readership there, that's true. So do authors also keep adapting to the changing environment around us? I'm referring to technology, I'm referring to AI, I'm referring to Chat GPT. So is Chat GPT going to take over our creativity, our writing? And have you experimented with Chat GPT? Any of you here?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I'll also like to share my experience with Chat GPT, but after you. Yes.
Please take my job, but you can't. Okay. So Chat GPT. So I was writing this show, and I was very badly stuck on the finale because there were some disagreements with the producers and the writers team ki kuch aur chahiye, something more. So I log on to Chat GPT, I give it as many details as possible, and I'm like, please write the episodic finale for me, thank you. And the worst possible version of one scene shows up. And I'm just like, you can't take my job, buddy, not like this, try harder.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a comedian and a writer on Instagram, his name is James Tang. he did an experiment. So he made an Instagram reel where he told ChatGPT to write a comedy sketch for him. That, you know, there's a cop in pursuit of a, you know, criminal, write that scene out. And then he enacted that scene in all seriousness. And he says, I don't know what you think about that. I think it was terrible. And it was. So I think ChatGPT has a long way to go. I mean, I suppose it could be useful. Like some of my programmer friends say that it's very good for making codes for us. But in terms of as a tool of research, I find it lacking quite a bit because I tried to get some geographical areas, you know, say in Bengal confirmed because I was story set there. And it kept messing up territories and this rivers in this state. So not even supplying factually correct information, not helping me with storytelling. It's good for, I guess, drafting emails and coding as of now. Maybe it could be a threat later, but I still feel like there is really no limit to human imagination, and until this technology gets sentient and we're in a Terminator universe, I think we're okay.
Anyone else has had experience with ChatGPT?
No, I have personally not tried it.
Yeah.
No, but I have heard similar bad experiences.
So you don't want to try.
So I don't want to venture in that direction at all.
Right. Playing safe.
I don't think you can use ChatGPT or AI for for facts, because what it does is to aggregate the information available on the internet and supply it to you.
Yes.
But if you were to use it, say, as an editing tool or as a grammar tool, it might make sense. But then you have specialized tools for that. I mean, Grammarly would be far better than ChatGPT in general. So personally, I've never used it, but I've never felt the need to. But yes, as a source of facts, it's bad.
So it's not replacing us anytime sooner.
Okay, so here's the scenario that it has replaced authors. What's going to happen then? If human society actually reaches that stage where a computer can write a story for you, then I think your life will be so miserable by then that you will not be able to enjoy it anyways. See, it's a dystopian situation. I mean, you have a machine that is writing humor for you, but if you are really at that stage, it cannot make you laugh because you will be miserable. So there will be nothing else for you to do.
True.
So true. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah. So I did try ChatGPT. I write extensively on Medium. I write small pieces. So I said, let me just try it once, So I wrote a piece and I published it on Medium, and I had my regular readers come back to me saying, it's a nice piece, Lata, but it lacks your style, your regular style of writing. And that was it. After that, I said, no, I don't want this. If a reader is able to identify my writing by the style, I really don't want to lose that. I mean, that I keep that very close to my heart. I don't want to lose that touch. So I said, tata, bye-bye to ChatGPT. I found it actually an extension of Google almost.
I'm just curious, did your readers know that was a ChatGPT?
No, they didn't know. They just said, but it lacks that crispiness, that style it lacks, it said. That's what.
Also, ChatGPT is sort of racist.
Is
because
it?
I was writing a story set in Pondicherry, which has obviously Tamil and French influences. And I said, okay, ChatGPT, give me titles for the story. And it kept saying stuff like curries and croissant.
Oh, okay.
And I said, okay, give me a log line, like a small description of the story. And it's always about Pondicherry, where there are cows on the streets.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I don't know, the spicy curries served in cafes. And I said, no.
So coming back to our writing process itself, okay, the authors and the screenwriters here, how important is it for us to fix in our heads the genre that we're going to write on? Is it important for the author to identify their own genres? Or is it something to leave to the publishing industry?
I found that a very difficult question to answer. Which genre is it?
Yeah, people ask so often.
It's like I've got this 5 slots, and you've got to fit into one of them.
Yeah.
So what if I'm the 7th or the 8th slot? Well, you're not here. Then I mean, it's like. So I found that question very irritating at times as well. It's like I think you write. I mean, you write what makes you happy in the first instance and what you think will appeal to readers, and beyond that you say what genre, all right. So I mean, I put Parijat Tree as a short story collection, but that's probably the closest there is to it, and it's not a very accurate description either.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Have you been challenged by that, Krishnan? I mean, trying to fit your story into a genre because publishing requires you to.
No. I never thought of it that way, but eventually they want to know, right? Like in anything, right? I mean, go and order for something simple to eat, people will still classify it as at least spicy, non-spicy, vegetarian, non-vegetarian. So that's going to happen. You can't really escape it. And but the Morning Star, when it got published, so I came to know of a genre which is called contemporary history, and nothing can be
Oxymorons. Total
There's
oxymorons.
something called contemporary history. So that's where it was classified.
Do you face these problems, I mean, genre and trying to fit in?
हमारा उल्टा है.
Ah,
Because in the publishing industry, you write something and then you hope there's a taker for it. You go to a publishing house with a manuscript and that's
Yeah.
the best you can do. In our industry, sure, we do something similar, right? We write spec scripts and give it to studios and hope it gets made. But if you're a writer who's in circulation, sometimes studios come to you. Now that is not a speculative script, that's a commissioned project that you have to write.
okay.
So the genre is given to you. The world is given to you. Now can you as a writer adapt to the genre and write that?
Oh, okay.
So a lot of my speculative work, for example, is comedies, rom-coms. But when I came into this industry and I started getting commissioned projects, they're all obviously thrillers because that's
There
it.
you go.
So I've adapted to the thriller genre now. So my IMDb page will have thriller projects. Then I had a meeting with TVF and they wanted to offer me a drama and they said, "But you only write thrillers, kya?"
See, my God.
I said,
How
"Arey,
did you
sir."
feel?
I say, "Sir, try me." So I think also as an author in the film, a writer in the film industry, you have to adapt a bit to the genres. Like I can say my strengths are, I can do drama, romance, comedy, straightforward, yes, maybe not slapstick. So now it's up to me if as a writer I want to train myself in doing comedies like slapsticks. So do I watch more slapstick material? Do I start practicing writing small slapsticky scenes and sending it to other writer friends for feedback? So that's the process of evolution. At least script writers go through if they want to grow that much. I'm not sure how it's like in publishing though.
Yeah. Publishing, I don't think we have too much of a say because they have, as Samir rightly said, they have those limited slots. I remember my debut book, Incognito. It was about this lady, Anjali, with delusional disorders. And promptly it was slotted under a psychological thriller category. And I never set out to write a psychological thriller, but I now talk about Incognito as a psychological thriller. It's a nice tag to add to it. And that's how it is also, categorized on Amazon, psychological thriller. So while it's important, I think it's a challenge for the writers themselves to be able to slot it under a label like that, so.
See, a lot of us are amateur writers. Okay, we're not professionals. But if you really take it up as a profession, then you need to you need to let your work be identified more easily. Correct. So we struggle with these genres now because we sometimes take certain words very seriously, but we have always lived with them. I mean, science fiction has existed for the longest time. That's a genre, correct?
Even fantasy,
Yes.
and all of that.
So they have always existed. So if you really want to become a professional writer, perhaps you will have to let the market know, where to find your work and how to identify it. And you can't be all over the place. Correct? That one book of yours is romance, the other one is fiction at the extreme end of it, where everything is fictional.
But
Right.
Krishnan, are we saying that once you've written, say, romance, then you should not experiment with any other
No,
type of
please
work?
do, but professionals don't do that. That's my point. If you want to be remembered as a writer who wrote in wide genres, that's fine. But if you are going to find your bread and butter through writing and be a full-time author, I don't think you can be all over the place.
I'm sure even readers, I mean, the people here, when they go to a bookstore or even when they are browsing on Amazon, I'm sure they keep genre in mind. They have favorites as per the genre. So one can't really, dismiss categorizing under genres that way. Yes. All right, now coming to winding up this roundtable, the writing process itself. How should one write? I mean, people keep saying write consistently. So does consistently mean daily writing? Do you dilute the writing quality by writing every day? And I'm sure the experience varies from person to person. So let's have a quick sharing of that experience individually. What is it for you? What works for you, what doesn't? Rahil?
I think it depends on your passion. I mean, you want, like he was he was mentioning, do you want to make your bread and butter by writing? So if that's the case, then you get up every morning and you write. Or if for someone like me who's aspiring to be a writer, I want to ensure that my writing is better and better, and I somewhere find myself, I find my voice. So I get up in the morning and I write every day.
Okay.
So I personally feel it's to each his own. The process is going to vary.
So what's yours? I mean, what are you most comfortable doing?
I prefer writing every day.
Every day.
Yes, because I find it very fascinating that I find myself every day. I find my space every day, and as a writer, I get to know myself every day. So I personally adore the uh, the decision that I've taken to write every day. That's my process.
Brilliant.
I have to sit on the table, and I have to give it those 3-4 hours and get those pages out. I don't care if tomorrow I get up and I delete all those pages, but I want to get the pages out. For me, that's the most important.
Wow. Lovely to know that. Krishnan,
Yeah,
what's
I
yours?
think I agree with Rahil because that's what happens with me. So, I mean, you don't start by deciding that I will write and then start thinking. Actually, it's the other way around. Something is going on in your head and you quickly want to write it or type it. But a certain amount of discipline is also required. So,
Sure.
whenever I am writing, so I make it a point that I read every day. Not read every day, write every day. Okay. And if you leave a substantial gap in between, it starts to change. And I noticed it with one of the early books of someone so accomplished as Amitabh Ghosh. Because as I was reading, a part of it came and it struck my mind कि यार ये 15 दिन के बाद लिखा होगा इसे. Because the flow just
Continuity?
broke.
Yeah, the continuity.
Way he was forming the sentences and everything until that point, it just broke there.
Yeah.
So it was so obvious, and here I am reading Amitabh Ghosh. I mean, he's a great man as a writer, but it happens
Yeah.
at that level as well.
True.
Perhaps in his younger days, may not be now. So if you leave a substantial gap, it's difficult to pick up also.
All right. So that works for you, writing every day. Niharika?
So I'm somebody who actually likes to take breaks between projects, because especially when you're writing for OTT, things get very hectic. You're bound by deadlines. Everybody's deadline was yesterday or last week or whatever, and I try not to miss deadlines as best as I can. So that's a lot of round-the-clock writing, which gives me little time during that writing to do anything else.
Yeah.
So I usually try to take at least 1 or 2 months ki chutti, time off from writing, because I think output is essential, but input is also as important. So it's not just about consuming, films, web series. You're also reading a lot of books. Go, to an art exhibition, see a painting, photography exhibition. Go to the theater, because everything's a form of expression. So just embrace all medium. You don't know what will come to you. So I use that 2 months as a resting period to also travel, take it all in, and then start on a fresh story. Otherwise, another way, which I know some of my writer friends use, it's taken from the book The Artist's Way, where the author suggests that you write 1 page a day. Even if it's gibberish and it makes no sense, or you saw something out of a window or something abstract, but write that 1 page a day. Which one of my friends, who's one of the most prolific writers I know, that's the process he uses. I usually just take a 2-month break, and when I'm back, then I just start by writing a line, then a paragraph, and then just slowly expanding upon a page and building the universe from there. That's my process.
Lovely. Thank you. Samir?
That's a great question, Lata. First of all, I write every day. I write a diary, so that's reflective, and that's fountain pen and paper.
Okay.
That's not laptop. So that I do every day. But when I write a story, actually 2 things I realized when I was listening to all of you. I don't actually think of it before I write, so I get onto the laptop and it kind of develops by itself. And I've got a huge number of working drafts, so it's like. Most of my stories have had 5 or 6 working drafts before you reach something that, before you get something that's finally in the book. Yeah. But yeah, and after I do a story, I take a break. But it's about 4 or 5 days I take a break from writing, but I still do that one page in the diary and then start something after 5 or 6 days. Yeah. I do need to get my mind off it for a while and then think of something new that you want to do and get onto it.
And when it comes to me, I like it, what Niharika said resonates a lot with me, because I also like to take breaks and I write in spurts. And my breaks usually include massive reading time. I like to read a lot. So interspersing my writing with reading, and I'm basically a pencil and paper, right? I write with pencil, Apsara pencil. That's my pencil brand. And I write on paper with pencil. And another break for me from this major writing is writing on Medium. So shorter pieces, that's directly keyed in to the laptop. Shorter pieces, 3-minute reads, 2-minute reads, that's the break. And then of course travel becomes a much desired break between writing projects. So I do travel, that's the way it is. But staying in touch with writing, either through reading or writing itself, that's my way of doing this. Yeah? So I think we've had a wonderful discussion. We've let it free flow and say what we want to say. At the same time, we've talked about the latest challenges that we as creative people face in today's time. So I'd like to throw this open to the audience. If there are any questions that you will have, we'll be very happy to take them. And we'll try and answer them to your satisfaction. Yes, please.
A lot of discussion about, writing and then adapting it into web series. But do you actually, there is this one thing inside you that makes you feel like this was better in my book rather than on the screen? And how would you, if you had to put it in your vision, how would you tell someone that, this is better on my book? Did you ever feel that way? If yes, do you actually suggest them, or how do you deal with it?
All the time. Why do you think writers drink so much? I don't, but I can understand why. I think when I had my first show come out, there was a lot that was left on paper, and I was just telling everybody that only 70% of what I have written came out on screen, which actually is a pretty good statistic, because as a script writer, only 30% of what you write goes on screen. Everybody else meddles and does something to it. So but that 70% is there, but that 30% that didn't make it causes you pain, but then you think, okay, at least it's half decent, on to the next one, more creative control in the next one. The higher you go up the ladder, the more say you will have in the final output. Basically, one just has to accept that.
Niharika had given a great example of Gone Girl. Yeah. And even though the person who's written the book has also written the screenplay, I prefer the book. And I know that there are a lot of people who prefer the book. So as a filmmaker, adapting books is a very, very big challenge, because I'm an avid reader, and I'm yet to find that one film where I can say that the film is better than the book. I've never been able to find that film. And I don't know in the years to come if there will be, but I think adapting is a very, very big challenge.
We are often listening that publishing industry is dying. And since you all are here from both, who belong to both the industry, what is your take on that? Is it really dying, or is there any scope or any sort of suggestions in 1 or 2 lines, if you can guide us, so that people who are actually planning to write a book, they can, get an idea, we still have the hope. Yeah. So if you can share your insights on that.
I wouldn't say the publishing industry is dying, but it is changing. Okay, and it is adapting to the new demands in the external world. So there are various formats of publishing now available to new writers, to old writers as well. We have hybrid models which include both self-publishing, a part of it self-published, or co-published by the author, as they now term it. I mean, there's a lot of new terminology, new jargon coming up in the publishing industry, and there is one, it's not like one size fits all. It varies from the size of your wallet. If you're doing self-publishing, there's a lot of options available to you. So no, I don't think the publishing industry is dying. This is my opinion.
I'd like to ask this particularly to Rahil, because he is presenting a big production studios, one of the biggest producers of Bollywood. तो आपके यहाँ पर कितना परसेंटेज ऑफ कहानियाँ हैं, फिल्में हैं
जो कि उतरती हैं, जो किसी बुक पर बेस्ड होती हैं, या किसी ऑथर की किसी छोटी कहानी को बेस करके करी जाती हैं, और या फिर आगे कुछ इस तरीके का प्लान है? तो जो ऑथर्स है यहाँ पर, जो भी इस इंटरव्यू इस सेशन को सुनने वाले हैं, दे कैन डेफिनेटली ट्राई टू अप्रोच नाडियाडवालास, आई एम श्योर.
I have definitely observed a trend in the last 10 years, 10 to 15 years, that adaptations have increased. They have increased to another level altogether. So that's one thing that I would encourage all the authors to keep writing, because the trend right now is to adapt. Also, the mediums have increased. Earlier it was just theater. Now, because of OTT and multiple OTT platforms, you don't have so many writers right now churning out so many stories. So every production house, trust me, today the top 5 production houses in Bollywood have purchased rights to minimum 25 books. Every production house has rights to at least 20 to 25 books, and they have rights to at least 5 to 10 biopics. So they are sorted for the next 4 to 5 years. Coming to the whole thing that you brought up about publishing dying, I think the answer lies in our history. Our forefathers and the forefathers and people before that, the art of storytelling started with people sitting around the fire and telling stories. Then it came to people listening to stories with one man standing below a banyan tree and telling stories. So I think stories will never die. It will never. Yes, there is a shift today. There are readers who are shifting to viewers, but I think it's temporary. Stories and the art of storytelling, I don't see it dying. It was there years and years and years before, and I think it's going to last for years to come.
Thank you, all of you, because this is the panel which brought out the essence of YathaKatha Film and Literature Festival to the front. This is one of our biggest purposes, that the backbone of the industry, the content writers, don't get their due. And thank you for putting it out there. Because I come from marketing and branding, so I'm plugging that in for you all. If I were to ask all of you one sentence, why should I go and buy your book? What is in it for me as a reader to spend that 200 rupees or 500 rupees today? So I would like all of you to answer that question for me.
It's a good question. Okay. So at the basic level, it is, you will get to spend your time in a more qualitative way because you're reading. That's one. But if you're looking for more substantive stuff as to, what is it that is going to be your takeaway from, let us say, my book, The Morning Star. So it will make you relive your COVID days. Okay. That's what that book contains, to put it very simply. Now, if that entices you, perhaps you will pick it up. If it doesn't, you will leave it on the shelf.
I haven't written a book till date, but the stories that I'm writing right now, which I hope and I pray to make it into a film or a series. But if I ever do write a book, my one line will be, read my book because it will bring you closer to reality.
The art of the log line, which in our industry is what we call the one line in which we sum up a story, has to be the most enticing. So it can be anything. If you can drill the essence of your story, the most engrossing edge of the seat way, even if it's a drama, an emotional confrontation between a mother and a daughter have devastating consequences. क्या है वो consequences? Probably कुछ नहीं होता है end में, but हम वो लिखेंगे log line में. That's marketing. Some of marketing is lying, but it's good. People come. So you get a good book out of it, you get paid. I think it's a win-win. You just need to get people in through the door, and then what you've written will do the rest.
There are two questions. Yeah. One is from Rahil sir. So as you said, read my book because it will bring you close to reality. But isn't it true that most of the people read to escape the reality? Because because people are always sick of the reality. Reality is really sickening, actually. So people read to escape the reality. What are your thoughts about that?
Yes, you're right. People read to escape reality, but that is not what you will find in my book. My book will only be about real people. It will be about real characters, and it will be about real stories. So if somebody wants to escape reality, then my book is the wrong book. Please don't read it.
Paradoxically, we just assume when we say reality that it will be bad. You know, there are lots of good realities in this world. This world is a dichotomy of unbearable cruelty and unbelievable kindness.
And also, I'd like to add that you may be able to escape your reality, but the universal reality will still remain. So, someone else's reality, you will read about that. You may still escape your own reality while reading that.
That was really true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lata.
Thank you, audience. Thank you very much. And thank you, Charu, for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Charu.